This is Taylor Drury, and you accidentally downloaded the Thinking Woodsman podcast.
Thanks for the introduction, Taylor. Hey everyone, this is the April episode of the Thinking Woodsman podcast, the confluence of humor and conscience in the great outdoors. I'm your buddy Tim Chelsvik, and we're broadcasting from the redsgear.com studio. Gear up for your next big adventure at redsgear.com. The big thought this month is all about how the Eric Church song, Mr. Misunderstood, describes my life growing up as an outdoors junkie. Then in the Level Up segment, we have a share-worthy conversation about morel hunting and new health warnings about them. Next, I chat with the aforementioned Taylor Drury about her life growing up hunting on TV and the unique perspective she has as a result of that upbringing. Then we'll visit with Daryl Steenan at Select Archery and talk about how to navigate your local archery shop's used bow rack. In the What Were They Thinking segment, you'll hear direct quotes from radicals who want your pro-hunting voice silenced. Then the What's Cooking segment highlights a new Thinking Woodsman partnership, as well as some articles on shed hunting, woolly buggers, and blister psychology. You heard that right, blister psychology. In the business spotlight, hear from Jake Reese, a founder of a Christian outdoorsman network known as The Ridgeman. And finally, in the Will It Kill It segment, a six-pack of Dr. Pepper goes up against a G5 small game head. Well, okay, let's get the show rolling with our first segment. It's April's big idea, and it's called Mr. Misunderstood. We're going to start out this month's big idea with a little bit of truth about me, and that I grew up on country music. I love it. George Strait, Merle Haggard. I love those guys. It's about all I ever listened to. And there's just a little bit of current country that I'll play with a few artists like Justin Moore and Eric Church. Now, Eric Church has a new song called Mr. Misunderstood, and I played the song over and over and over again, and it finally dawned on me why it's resonating so deeply, and that's because it really describes my childhood growing up. Now, the song is about Eric and how his musical tastes cut him away from his buddies because they were all into top 40 radio and what was on the pop charts while he was into old school rock and roll. Now, I guess I am kind of in that same boat in that I grew up on country and I was a fan of country for a long time, even when my friends weren't. But I didn't play a whole lot of organized sports. In fact, I wasn't even interested. What I was interested in was being outside, catching fish, and shooting squirrels and going deer hunting. It's all I cared about. And that made me different than a lot of the people I grew up with, a lot of my buddies. And just as an illustration, I remember the last day of kindergarten, my dad came to pick me up, and I think we were leaving early because we were heading north to Wisconsin for a fishing vacation. My kindergarten teacher walked up to him, and I remember watching this conversation, but I didn't hear what the conversation was about until years later when my dad and I were on our way down to the Fox River to go fishing for walleye. He kind of confided in me. He said, the last day of kindergarten when I came to pick you up, it was kind of funny because your teacher came up to me and she wanted to express how thankful she was to have had you in her class and what a great kid you are and everything. But she said that she was a little concerned because she thought you needed to have more interest, that you need to be more well-rounded because all you ever talked about was fishing. And that's where my dad started laughing and said, well, I told her that you were also interested in hunting, but that didn't seem to move her meter at all. I'm really glad that my dad did not take my kindergarten teacher's advice about how to raise me, while I can appreciate her concern. Maybe the path I walked was a little bit different than the rest of my friends. Maybe I wore camouflage pants to high school. But as I look back on my life, I'm so thankful that I've been able to live a life in the outdoors as deeply as I have, because it's not something that ends when I leave school or when I've reached my peak physical condition. I was listening to the former CEO of REI a number of years ago at a keynote address she was giving, and she was citing a research study that was essentially saying kids and teenagers that grow up doing outdoor-oriented sports, hiking and fishing and hunting and those kind of things, are much more likely to continue those passions deeper into their adulthood and through their adulthood into the later years of their life than are their peers who grow up playing the standard sports. Part of that is because just the sheer infrastructure required to play baseball and football and hockey, there's a lot of equipment and teams and facilities and things like that. But you also have just kind of the injury factor that's in play. I just heard an interview that Mark Strand did at Midwest Outdoors. He did it with Gary Roach, who I think is in his 70s now, still catching walleye, still going out there and ice fishing. The guy has been fishing his entire life, and that really appeals to me. Fishing and hunting are something that I intend to do for the entirety of my life as long as I'm able to. And I know that a fair number of my buddies that spend a lot of time focusing on their athletics had a very small window to do it. And I'm not saying if you have the opportunity to play sports, don't do it, or that sports are bad, but not at all. I love sports. In fact, I grew up playing a little bit of hockey myself. It's okay to walk a different path and focus your attention and your time on your fishing and hunting and other outdoor pursuits, even though it sets you apart and makes you Mr. Misunderstood or Mrs. Misunderstood, especially if you're a female. Sometimes that's not considered something typical that females would do. I just want to encourage you to stay on that path, even though it makes you different than other folks, because it's more likely that you will continue that way, way farther into your life than you would playing some other sport. And I have to say, the friends and the experiences I've had afield, the relationships I've been able to deepen as a result of my time out in the woods with buddies and with family members, it has enriched my life in ways I just can't imagine anything else doing. So if you're Mr. Misunderstood because you'd rather be out on a boat catching bass, or you'd rather be up in your deer stand, I understand you. You're not alone. You may be different than the pack that you run in, but that's okay. Keep on the path. You're doing fine. We'll all be Mr. Misunderstood together. And that's the April show's big idea. And we're back with the Level Up segment. This is the segment where we talk about skills to level up your woodsmanship game. And, April is the month across the country where folks are getting anxious to get outdoors and start hunting them morels. People that have hunted morels before, this is a great segment for you to share with your friends who have expressed interest in hunting morels. We have an avid morel hunter with us, and then we're going to talk about a PSA that was just released that I think that you'll really want to share with your friends who are thinking about morel hunting. So without any further ado, I have in the redsgear.com studio today an avid morel hunter. Sir, would you please share with us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to give out any personal information, so you didn't really say we were going to talk about that.
All right. That's fine. Well, we can definitely talk about morel hunting, though, despite not knowing your name. You'll remain anonymous.
I appreciate that.
To protect your anonymity. So why don't you talk to the folks a little bit then about how you got started hunting morels, because everyone has to get a start somewhere. How did you get yours?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that's something I want to talk about tonight. That's a little much.
Okay, so you don't want to talk about how you got started hunting morels.
No, let's try another. Do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah. What about your biggest find? One of my first morels that I ever found was almost a foot long. It was seriously about as long as my boot is, and I've got a size 12 boot. And I found it by accident. I didn't even know what a morel was, but the buddy I was with was freaking out because obviously that's a big morel.
Yeah.
What was your biggest find ever?
Yeah, that's also kind of that's not something I'm interested in talking about.
Top secret
tonight.
Also.
Yeah, I'm just not willing to share that with your listeners tonight.
Kind of wishing we would have vetted this interview a little bit before we get started.
Do you have any other questions for me, maybe? Something that I might be.
Well, yeah, one of the biggest questions that beginning morel mushroom hunters have is where do you find them? Because if you go online, there's about as many ideas on where to find morels as there are folks who are hunting them. So where does a newbie start?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately,
That you will answer.
That I'm not going to be able.
But
to
you're not going. Okay.
going to be able to answer tonight for you.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah.
What about? How about, so I'm not asking you to give away your own personal honey spots, but how about some general tips for novice morel hunters?
That's another really, really good question that I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with that line of questioning. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I don't think you are.
I mean, it's just you're just asking a little much for me tonight.
A lot of personal questions about morel hunting. Well, morel.
I really prefer to keep my personal life personal.
Yeah. Well, I've heard, I'm a morel hunter myself, and I have heard that our kind are a little
somewhat
wary.
Secretive, maybe.
Yep, secretive, wary about giving up our information. But
I mean, that's not really me. But yeah,
you're usually a fountain of.
I've heard that about others, though. Some
Okay.
can be quite secretive about it.
Yeah. Well, you're earning the reputation now. Well, okay. So one last question: when you don't find morel mushrooms, if you do or do not eat them, what recipe is your favorite?
So recipes. Yeah. I don't know that I really. I'm not. I can't share that with you.
You can't share recipes. No. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming into the studio.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. It's been
today.
great talking with you tonight.
Yeah. I'll probably just turn your mic down for the rest of the interview. So,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. I do, however, have some information for folks who are interested in beginning morel hunting, and it's actually very timely. This is a public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Mycological Boondoggles, and it's important because it changes the game in terms of what we know about morels. And again, if you are thinking about starting morel hunting, you need to know this. And if you already are a morel hunter, you need to share this interview and this information with other folks. So from the U.S. Department of Mycological Boondoggles, these are now known and confirmed diseases you can contract from ingesting, and some you can even contract just by contact with morel mushrooms. So here's the list of diseases you can get from morel mushrooms. The first is dysentery inversions. Next is sampling fingers. So these are all medical conditions. The third is dental corns. The fourth disease you can contract from morels, lung trolls, which that sounds terrible. You can also contract undulated forehead, throat carbuncles, and a condition known as crunch rumpus. So find morels if you want to, but I think that information alone is enough to ward off any right-minded individual that's even thinking about going out looking for morels. So up your woodsmanship game in April by, I guess, not looking for morels. And of course, with the information you got from our guest today, you're probably not going to find any anyways, but now you know all the diseases you can get. And guys, watch out for crunch rumpus. You're listening to the Thinking Woodsman podcast. Okay, everyone, we're happy to have in the redsgear.com studio Taylor Drury from Drury Outdoors. Taylor, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So Taylor has unique perspectives on the outdoor world. She's grown up in it, has a successful hunting career, and also does a lot just as a young person. Taylor, how do you balance all that?
This is actually a good question right now because I just kind of transitioned into a new chapter. I started online college. So I found out that my degree was offered all online. So I chose to do that, and that has given me basically unlimited time to hunt. And it was kind of our first test run this fall. I basically moved up to the farm. I spent the entire fall with my dad. Uh-huh. And so basically we'd hunt and film during the day producing the shows. And then we'd get home, we'd eat dinner, and then the rest of my night was spent doing schoolwork. So
Wow.
really online education has given me a whole new just opening to my schedule, and it really now gives me the time that I've always wanted to have in the outdoors.
Sure. And probably requires a certain amount of self-discipline.
Yes, it
because,
does.
because I'm sure you'd rather be out in the stand or in the blind than online.
Yes.
But if you can swing kind of I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this, then it does open up some new doors for you.
Yes, we would laugh because there were some days where my homework load was just outrageous, and he's like, I think you're gonna have to sit the hunt out. And then the whole time I'm texting Dad, wondering what they're seeing. But
what's going on? Yeah.
It's the best of both worlds, really.
Well, can you think of a time growing up? So obviously you've spent your entire life having an outdoors-based family. Can you remember a time that you really felt sealed the deal for you? Like you just knew that you were gonna be a hunter.
Gosh, as far back as I can remember, I have been doing outdoor activities with my dad, and my mom. It's really, we were always out in the four-wheelers, and I would go help them check cameras. We would go shoot guns at pumpkins and balloons and water bottles and all those type of things. And, looking back at the moment, those type of activities were very fun, which I wanted to go back for more and more and more. But I didn't realize that at the same time I was being a sponge to my dad, and I was learning so much about several different aspects that play a huge role into our lifestyle now and what my dad does on a daily basis. So, but really, if there's one moment that stands out, I think that would be when I killed my first deer. I was 7 years old, and I harvested a doe at a very close family friend of ours named John Williams. And I can remember vividly the entire hunt. I can remember the feeling that I had, the adrenaline, that moment that I shared, with my dad. And I think that was really the breaking point, because I was able to experience that feeling that all hunters refer back to, and was able to eat my first meal of venison, from the doe that I harvested. So I think that was truly the moment that, when I think back of, when I decided I was going to be a hunter, that was really it for me.
So it was kind of a lead up, and then you had this ultimate experience of actually harvesting your own. And you said you were 7?
I was 7, yes.
7 years old.
Yes.
Hunting is becoming more and more of an oddity to the general public. That especially folks in your age bracket, they are so divorced from the life and death cycle that something had to die for you to eat that McDonald's hamburger.
Right.
How do people view your role in hunting? Do they think it's strange that you hunt? People that you just generally hang out outside outdoor media?
Yeah, right. I grew up, in the city. So everyone always finds that really strange, but I did. I grew up in the city. I went to a public school. So hunting wasn't, hunting was really a foreign topic to all of my friends and even my teachers, and, I think growing up, I always looked at it as, I know exactly why we live the lifestyle that we do, and I know why we're so proud to live it. So it was almost like I took it as almost a job for me, growing up, that...
Mark is taking pictures of Taylor right now through the glass window, so she's losing concentration.
But
it's a proud dad.
I took that as a job, and I said, you know what, it's really my role as a hunter, as an educated hunter, to kind of educate them and teach them why we do what we do. And it was very cool. It's very cool. I've taken, quite a few friends hunting with us, and it was very cool to kind of watch, their change in mind, or they kind of changed their entire opinion on hunting, So really, I think growing up, it was just, and it's still like that today. I think every hunter has a job, and that's to continue to spread that positive message about our lifestyle. And try to reach as many ears and eyeballs as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of eyeballs, this is lost on everyone else, but Taylor has rifle cartridge earrings in this morning.
I do, yes.
That is so cool. Where do you find something like that?
We just got back from SHOT Show a couple weeks ago, and the Under Armour girls gave all of us they're Winchester bullet earrings, and they're from I believe it's called Hot Brass and Company, I believe.
Okay.
Hot Brass Company. They're on Instagram, and they have very, very, very cute bullet jewelry.
Yeah, those are tough, and I'm thinking I'm going to get some for my daughter because hopefully guys will think hands off.
Yes.
Because that household has firearms. Taylor, so I'm sure that one of the frequent questions you get is, what's it like to be a female in the outdoor industry? I wonder, and that's not my question. My question is more around, how long do you think it'll take, and or what do you think it will take until being a female in the hunting industry is no longer a novelty?
I can remember going to trade shows about 5 years ago. I was actually just talking to Ray I about that. I can remember going to those shows 5 years ago, and there were very few women, out walking the shows, learning about hunting products, all that type of stuff. And now you go to these shows, and there's female hunters everywhere. But I think of it as it's become kind of such a novelty, and has taken the media that all these females are starting to hunt, because for hundreds and hundreds of years there was that stereotype that it was the male's job, you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily know, how long it will last, but, to me, I don't think any female hunter looks at it that way. I sure don't. I look at it as, let's get as many hunters. I don't care if it's female or male. Obviously, we need more female hunters, and it goes back to me talking about how every hunter has a job, and that's to continue to spread that message and see how many people you can get involved in the sport. It might take years and years for, kind of the trend to go away about female hunters, but I think it's something that will take a while, because we're still trying to break stereotypes. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that truly don't understand why females are hunting. So it's so important for more and more females to kind of unite together and create our own little community and brag about it on social media and take the pictures and teach people, why, if they have a little daughter or a granddaughter, why they should take them hunting, not just the grandson or the son. So I think it's really awesome to see how many people get into the sport, just from going with friends or, going with family, just to maybe spend a little afternoon, and then they're hooked for life. So absolutely. I look forward to all the years to come to see how many females are in the industry, because I think it's right now, like Under Armour is doing a phenomenal job at putting so many women together that all eat, sleep, and breathe this lifestyle, and that message that companies like Under Armour are spreading about female hunters is so, so important in today's society.
It makes a lot of sense. It's great to see more women on pro staffs of different companies, and there's also there's an economic driver there. There is. More hunters equals a larger market share. So ethically, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's obviously the right thing to do, and it makes a lot of business sense also.
Yeah, it's so cool to think, it's everyone says, oh, you're just a hunter, and it's like, if you think about it, and we're just contributing so much, whether it's to taxes or conservation or the meat on the tables. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be a hunter? There's so many benefits that we can brag about, because we're all contributing to so many important aspects of life.
Absolutely. Hunters are the primary conservationists in our country. Yes. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming into the studio to chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the role modeling you're doing for young ladies and just young people out there in general.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
I was just rattling around my garage a couple days ago trying to get out my daughter's bike. It was piled under a bunch of deer stands and my turkey blind, and my poor blind is just ripped up. It's been knocked over from the wind and trampled on by cattle on one of the properties I hunt, and I'm about due for for a refresh of some of my turkey getting gear. Well, if you are in the market for updating your turkey hunting kit, or really anything for the outdoors, redsgear.com has a great way to save 10% off. And Brian Haying is here. Brian is the brand manager for Reds Gear. Brian, why don't you tell them how they can save a little bit of money on their outdoor gear?
Absolutely. If you need a new blind, you need some camo, maybe a mask, a crow call, slate call, maybe a box call. Frankly, any kind of equipment to gear you up for the spring turkey season, come to Red's Gear at redsgear.com and use code SPRINGTURKEY. Using that code will actually get you 10% off any order you place between now and April 31st. So you can come and get any kind of gear you need to make sure that you can get the big gobbler.
Can I order a bunch of gift cards and get the 10% off?
You cannot order a gift card for 10% off.
Trying to work the system here. Well, 10% is pretty slick. So use the code SPRINGTURKEY. Don't use it on gift cards and be a cheapskate like me. And 10% on a $200 blind. Let me do some calculations here. That's $20. So that's some serious cash, especially if you need a serious refresh of your gear. Check out redsgear.com and use the code SPRINGTURKEY and save a little bit of money while you gear up and get the stuff you need. Let's, just to kind of get our vocal cords warmed up, let's talk about embarrassing...
Me.
Yeah, that and embarrassing personal hygiene issues that we may have had growing up.
I don't want to talk about it.
I'll go second. I like to...
Go after? Yeah. I'm going to let you have that one.
All right. Hey, everybody. We're back with the Thinking Woodsman podcast. We are no longer in the redsgear.com studio right now. We are at Select Archery in Normal, Illinois. Normally, you guys are used to hearing my buddy Daryl chime in from the secret layer via his audio connection. He's here with me.
Yes. Here with you. Across the desk.
Proving that Daryl clearly has the superior podcasting voice to me.
That's not true. I can talk like this.
Yes. Please say there are those who call me Tim.
No,
Okay.
no, because there are none of those.
Fine.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun to get to actually come to the shop and hang out with Daryl and see just how much they're expanding. And one thing that I wanted us to talk about today, Daryl, is how to navigate the world of the used bow rack at an archery shop.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
we'll talk about your perspective as a shop owner, what you take, what you do with it to make sure it's good enough to sell, but also about how can people get the most bang out of their used rig and some of the misconceptions around that.
Sure.
So out of the gate, why don't you talk about the process of someone bringing in a used bow and what you look for, kind of what would be the red flags to say, thanks but no thanks, and something that would make a good fit for the rack.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah. We do take used bows here at Select Archery. It's not a practice that every bow shop, has.
Why not?
It's additional inventory. Every time I sell a used bow, I'm not selling a new bow.
Okay.
But in my eyes, I'm still selling a bow. I'm still making that sale. I'm still earning that customer's trust. The one drawback you're going to see on the used rack as a consumer is generally you're not going to see a warranty on those bows.
Okay.
At least Elite Archery, and I believe there's one more, and I'd have to do some homework. I'm not going to say the company. Will extend a warranty, secondary and tertiary users, but most of the time it's to the original purchaser only. Once that bow's traded in or passed on to another, the warranty's void.
So which is part of the, I guess, the lower price point.
Exactly.
You're trading off kind of that long-term security.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. Companies like Matthews Archery, if you buy a bow, even if you buy a bow in 1992, they still make parts for that bow. If you have a limb fail, if you have a bearing go, anything like that, you can call up Matthews if you're the original owner of that bow, and you can get that part replaced for free. Sometimes you have to pay labor depending on the shop, but the part's are going to be free.
Okay.
You don't get that luxury on the used rack.
Yeah.
For the most part. So you are saving money there in trading off that warranty. If you're one that takes care of your bows and you rarely have issues with them, it's not as big of a concern. But if you're hard on your gear, it's something to think about for sure.
Have you seen a rig come in that you have just had to say, thanks but no thanks?
Yeah, we see quite a few of them actually. We have to have kind of a higher standard of what we'll put in our used rack, and we're honest with folks. Kind of my process is if a bow comes in, I hop online, I see what they're trading for, I see what they're selling for, I see what eBay has them for, Archery Talk. I just kind of take a quick snapshot, a couple of sites that I look at. I let the consumer, I let the customer know what that number is online, and then I let them know what I can offer them for, because I can't pay retail. I have to make money on that sale because I'm not going to make anything on a used bow If they buy a used bow, I still have to make a few dollars there.
Sure. Which, like, if anyone has watched Pawn Stars,
exactly, it's a very similar process. Yeah.
So people come in and they have expectations around what they can get for their bow.
And they hear that retail number. Well, that's the retail number is not the number I can pay. But I make sure that the customer knows what that retail number is. So make an informed decision. If you feel like you can move that bow online, move it online. You're going to make more money that way. But if you just want to get out of it quick and you want to, you get that new bow in your hands because you're antsy, by all means, trade it in. But as far as that bow that we don't take, if it's got, round wheels and steel cables, we're probably not going to make an offer. There's an age cutoff for sure. And depending on the bow, there's some classics out there that really do well on the used market, and we kind of keep an eye out for those. But for the most part, we do have a cutoff, and there are bows that we just pass on.
So let's say that as a consumer, I walk into an archery shop that maybe doesn't have the same standards that Select does. What are red flags that I need to be looking for as I'm perusing the used rack?
Do what I do every day when I used bow comes in before you go to the shop. So get online, check eBay, know what that retail number is, roughly what that retail number is.
So make sure you're paying a fair price for it.
Exactly. Make sure that you're not being had. And there's some conjecture out there as to whether or not you're being had, if you're willing to be had. If you're not going to do your due diligence, there are shop owners out there who are trying to make every penny they can, and I can respect that. That's just not me. I'm not trying to get rich on my used rack. I'm trying to get a fair price so I can give a fair price down the road. So.
But what about bow quality? So maybe a shop doesn't vet their used rack as well as you do at Select. What would be some things that you would?
Oh, if you're looking to buy a used bow, yeah, absolutely. Strings and cables first and foremost. I won't put a bow on the rack unless I think, and again, I think it can get a year worth of use.
Okay.
I can't guarantee. I don't know what that string and cable's life has looked like for the most part. I do have friends and guys who I've sold the bow to new and I've serviced. There are bows that I know the history on better than others, but I don't know what that bow's life's looked like. So if there's a hidden problem that I can't see, sometimes that's just kind of the risk you take. So I look at the bow over. If I see any issues mechanically, I take care of them right away. Hopefully I catch them before I take the bow on trade, so I can take that into account. Strings and cables, though, I'll switch those. If I think that there's too much wear to get through a season or even get to a season, I'll put fresh threads on the bow before I put it on the used rack.
Okay.
Always. But look at your strings and cables. If the color looks like it's been sucked out of them, but they look like they're in good shape, it's bad. So, if you've got a bow or say an old Hoyt that's supposed to have brown and black strings and they're very light tan and kind of a gray or black, that string will fail. Once the color starts to go out of the string like that, it's had a long life. It's old.
Not just cosmetic,
right? It can look like it's in good shape still. We've seen them snap just from being dry, just from bow doesn't necessarily have to have a lot of use, but if that string's been on there 8-10 years, it's time to go. So definitely watch your strings and cables. Look over the cams real close. Ask if you can draw the bow. You always want to be able to draw the bow. To make sure it fits you, obviously, but listen for any grinding, any scratching, anything, bad cams, bad bearings, anything like that.
Okay.
Anything that doesn't feel like it should. It's definitely a red flag.
Okay. Let's say that I have a used bow and I want to bring it in to sell it or trade it in on a newer bow.
Sure.
What can I do as someone that's looking to offload a used rig to make sure that I get the most money out of my trade-in?
Generally, not a ton. If your bow is in rough shape, a good bow shop's going to be able to spot that even if you try to clean it up. Wax your string. Obviously, you don't want to bring it in muddy or rusty or any of those things are going to be a pretty big red flag that bow is hunted hard and it's had a rough life, which doesn't it doesn't make the bow not usable. It just makes more work for the shop to get it ready for the next customer.
It probably brings up questions too, like how well was this piece of equipment cared for?
Exactly.
If it looks like this, what else could be wrong with it?
Exactly. Yeah, and there's things that we look for automatically. We'll look over the cams and everything. But if you have a mechanical issue, disclose it. don't try to slip it through. Don't try to, most of the time it's gonna be found anyway. But be honest with the shop owner when you're trading your bow, and they're gonna find it. So you just make yourself look bad in the process if you don't. If you truly don't know or you didn't realize, that's one thing. But if you have an issue that you're not disclosing, it's going to be found. And if it's found after the gentleman or lady takes the bow on trade, they're not going to be a big fan of yours. So let's be honest both ways. I mean, and my hope is that most of the shops out there, all the shops out there, are honest with their consumers as well. So we like to think that honesty goes both ways. But as far as bring the bow in, if the bow needs a string, generally it's not going to be worth your time or money to put the string on, or have the shop owner put the string on before they take it on trade, because it's going to cost you $110 to $150, $200, whatever the shop charges for a string, right? It's not going to cost the shop that much to put a string on it. So you won't get that $110 back out.
So don't invest in that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what about, like, if you have a really high end sight on there?
Sure.
Does it make sense to swap out maybe a more like a price point model?
I like to see complete package bows. They sell faster. I like to see bows that are ready to shoot. I generally don't give a lot for the accessories, though.
Okay.
So they're kind of a wash for me, because if I take the accessories off the bow, say you've got a standard 3 or 5 pin sight, doesn't have any kind of bells or whistles, it's just your True Glow or your Apex, just your baseline stuff. If I take that off the bow, you have to ask yourself, what's that worth sitting on the counter by itself?
So if I come in, it makes more sense for me to take off the really nice stuff.
Yeah.
That I put dollars into, because I'm not going to.
You're not going to see the return on it. Exactly. Generally, you're not going to see a return unless it's a specialty item that shop is interested in. I do factor in. We do have a target clientele here that looks for that higher end sight, higher end rests. If I see that kind of stuff, I'll give a little more allowance that way, but not necessarily on all accessories. A lot of times, I'll give an offer bare bow and with all the accessories, and that offer is not as far apart as people would like sometimes.
Okay. Is the price that you would be willing to pay someone in cash, could someone get a different value for their bow if they were to trade it in?
I usually give more on trade, because I have room to play on both sides of that transaction. I don't generally, as a rule, I don't ever say no before I see a purchase outright offer, but I don't generally buy bows outright. There's issues there with potential stolen goods, things like that. Yeah. Generally, if somebody's trading something in, it's theirs, and they're getting another bow. They're in archery. If you've got something walking off the street, you have no idea if that came out of the back of somebody else's pickup truck.
Right. So if I come running into the shop out of breath with a hay line and want like $150 for it, and
there's usually that's too good to be true. Exactly. So generally I'll buy it and I'll call the police. But good to know. So generally, what you want to do there is if you're in my shop anyway, and I can't speak for everyone's shop, but in my shop, I can. It's just
this is a podcast,
right? I can do whatever I want. It's the internet. It's all true, right? So. You lost my train. It's
so
gone.
You're talking about different Kool-Aid mixes that you
Kool-Aid, right? Grape, yeah, my favorite. So no
ethical issues with people bringing in
right. Well, not even ethical, but I can only make money on one side of that transaction if I'm buying it from you outright. I don't have room to play on both sides of the transaction with the new going out and the used coming in. So generally, I will offer less if I'm buying a bow outright.
Yeah. So if your end goal is to get a new rig. You've got kind of two factors to look at. One is selling it outright, and just knowing that if a shop has the rig you want, you're probably going to do better on the deal overall if you trade in your old bow at the shop and buy your new rig at that same shop.
Yeah, because exactly, I can give you a better deal if that's what we're doing. Or if you just sell it outright and come with a pocket full of cash. I mean, that's that works fine too. But once in a while, we'll have somebody decide, I'll keep mine. It's worth more to me than what you're offering, and then they come in later and want to sell it, and the number's different. Sometimes you cause a little heartache there, but I mean, usually it's a smooth transaction. It goes pretty well.
Cool. Personally, it's a lot of fun to cruise the used bow rack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to see, because, sometimes you'll find brands that the shop doesn't carry natively, and you see kind of a transition over time between technologies and cam size and shape, and just a lot of fun to see the diversity.
Oh, absolutely. And the used rack has if somebody comes into my shop looking to spend that, $400 to $600, and they really don't want to break the bank, but they don't want to, they want more than a $200 Walmart bow. Used rack is a great place to be. It's a great place to be, because you can get 360 feet per second 2-year-old bow for the same money that you're going to get a $400, $500 price point bow from a company that's new. So you're getting more bow for your money, but again, you're not getting the warranty. You're not getting that peace of mind that where that bow's been its entire life. So there's some trade off there, but you're getting a better quality bow on the used rack for the money.
Yeah. So a lot of things to consider if you're thinking about either upgrading to a newer model and you've got a rig that you wanna make sure you get some value out of. Daryl, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, bud.
Okay, and welcome back into the What Were They Thinking segment. I do What Were They Thinking because it's important that we understand as outdoorsmen what anti-hunters think, how they think, what they value in order to best mount the right kind of defense and have a great offense. It's also important to note that there's been a sea change in American culture over the past probably 20 years that I've seen, that we've moved away from the classical liberal to the progressivist, who it's not okay that they just disagree with your particular views. They want to take away rights. Enter Patricia Randolph, a columnist for the Cap Times out of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin specifically. She just penned a column for the Cap Times that is completely focused and targeted in on removing your voice from the conservation legislative landscape in Wisconsin and, by extension, the rest of the country. Let me read you a quote that she selected to start off her column. The male leaders of Earth appear to have abandoned their senses. So forget about the male leaders of other planets. They've appeared to abandon their senses. They murder humans and other animals, forests and rivers and mountains every day, and they're in office and never seem to notice it. She borrowed that quote from Alice Walker, but that's where she's coming from. So just so you get it, and the Cap Times, obviously a very progressive, admittedly a progressive publication. What Patricia Randolph wants to do is to install anti-hunters in the Wisconsin DNR's Conservation Congress. Now, the Conservation Congress exists to inform and influence legislation that is adopted by the DNR around rules like one of the things that they're going to be talking about is on whether or not they should ban lead in hunting ammunition. It seems like a pretty serious piece of policy to consider. In her words, they want to purge killers from conservation. So much so that Patricia and her gang in Madison are linked to a group called Nature's Revenge Association, cleverly acronymed the NRA. And the Nature's Revenge organization even has a petition. This is back in September. They filed a petition with the Obama administration to remove any hunters from what they call wildlife organizations like DNRs, like departments of conservation. These are departments. These are not organizations. They want you out of the conservation conversation. They don't want hunters involved. The people that want free speech, these are the people that want your voice silenced. Let me read you another quote from Patricia's column in the Cap Times. She's explaining the process and why it's important that they need anti-hunters involved in this Conservation Congress. Quote, the delegates are supposed to represent all citizens in deciding statewide issues of importance, governing our publicly purchased lands and stewardship of our wildlife and commons. Of the 360 delegates, all but 5 are still trappers, hounders, and avid killers of wildlife and have controlled this entire system for over 80 years. This is an unsustainable trajectory of macho firepower. Again, do you see where she's coming from? She clearly has an agenda, and to her credit, she's doing something about it. And this is why you need to pay attention, especially if you live in Wisconsin. You need to be involved in this. They have been successful. In fact, they've had a husband and wife duo that the wife has been nominated. Here, listen to this. There's no anti-hunting party to nominate candidates, but you can take a friend and nominate each other. So they're wanting to kind of bring folks into these county level meetings and nominate them into this Conservation Congress. These are grassroots positions that can be used as a stepping stone to other leadership positions. This is a great opportunity to learn how decisions are made and to develop advocacy skills. Last year, Jeannie Matoyer, a woman organic farmer, ran in Washara County and won by standing up for butterflies. She won by standing up for butterflies. Now her husband, Russ Brown, is running for assembly. They have been successful to a small degree. Do you see why it's important that you're involved in organizations like the National Deer Alliance or the Real NRA? That you are voting. Voting does make a difference. If you're a listener in Wisconsin, I'll link the PDF of where these county level hearings will be taking place on April 11th at 7 p.m. Be sure to be there. Your voice, our voice, needs to be heard. You have to understand that not only are there people out there who are against hunting, but there's a subset of those people who are actively working to prevent you from hunting. You need to be involved. And you need to understand the mindset behind the way these people who are wanting to take away your rights, you need to understand the mindset behind that. And that's the What Were They Thinking segment. Stay tuned for What's Cooking. Okay, and we're back with the What's Cooking segment. And last month, I know I was a little cryptic, and I was trying not to be, but I was also trying to respect the process here. I was a little cryptic about cutting back on some of my content generation, and there was a good reason for that, and it was because I'm kind of shifting gears a little bit and partnering up with a little team called Drury Outdoors. You may have heard of them if you watch the Outdoor Channel, the Pursuit Channel, and I'm happy to have Matt Drury here with me to talk a little bit more about what that relationship is going to look like and what you can expect in terms of content generation. Matt, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. You know, we're pretty excited about the partnership. So one of the things that's been really our most viewed thing on our website from day one has been our journal. And so our website's druryoutdoors.com. And if you go to the journal section, you can go through, I think it dates back all the way back to 2004 maybe. And you can check out any time of the year what any of our team members have harvested and kind of the stats, the state, the weapon, the date. And then a lot of the times the guys would write their own journal entries. And, all of our hunters, it's a very diverse group of people. So it's anybody from a laborer to a truck driver to a pharmacist. So, some of our entries are good. Some are, pretty basic. But the whole purpose of teaming up with you, Tim, was to, find somebody that's a really good writer, understands our space, understands kind of what the reader would want, and really diving into it a little bit more and getting some more of the nitty gritty of why and how can we help our viewer or our reader in this instance actually learn how to kill their own deer on their own place. And that's really what Drury Outdoors has always been about, and what from Mark and Terry on down from 1989 till now, it's always been about how can we try to be successful in the field, and then how can we pass that information along to our viewers. And so that's been, I think, the real basic idea behind us teaming up is, okay, can you, get with the guy after he harvests a deer or turkey or whatever the case may be, dive into a story, interview him more or less, and then spit out a 600-word journal entry that our viewers can dive into.
That's loaded up with words that are too big to comprehend and run-on sentences.
Yeah.
That's what I'm known for.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's exciting for me because obviously Drury Outdoors has such a strong reputation. It's one of the biggest names in outdoor media. So it's a lot of fun to get to see the behind-the-scenes of what happens and talk to the guys that are in the field that are making these kills. So I'm looking forward to it. And I also think that there's a great overlap between what you all want to do. It's not just about the stats. Like, here's the bow, here's the arrow, here are the technical stats of the kill. But what does it mean? What does it really mean? Because we all love gear, we all love the facts, but what is the real significance of the kill, the
Yeah.
context, the story behind it. So that's really what we want to try to pull out.
And some of these guys, it's amazing. I mean, these guys are our team. We're very proud of the guys that we've assembled on our Drury Outdoors team. And, I think it starts with Mark and Terry and it goes on down through all the cast members of our different TV shows. But they are land managers. They're gamekeepers. And, they're doing some interesting things on their own properties, whether it's planting trees or their food plot architecture or whatever the case may be to try to move or push deer in a certain way. And these are the things that we really want to convey in the journals as to what did they do? How did they kill these deer? And how can we help our end user, the viewer at home, or the reader in this instance, learn from that and take it and implement it on their own place?
Yeah, it's not about bragging. It's about getting others a chance to get out and do what they're doing too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're going to be starting that this turkey season. So beginning in April, be watching DruryOutdoors.com. Go to the journal section and you'll be able to see these journal entries. Obviously, there's already a bunch there, but we're going to see if we can't polish them up a little bit too.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it, Tim.
Cool. Me too. Well, the rest of the story, if I can borrow a line from Paul Harvey in the What's Cooking segment, there's a few things that I've posted, mostly on redsgear.com. There's one article called Don't Call It Shed Hunting, and I know that it's April, and so we're still out there looking for bone, but I try to reconceptualize the concept of shed hunting to hopefully make you more successful next time you go out. I also wrote a story about a time when I thought I was such a sophisticated fly fisherman that I didn't need to bother with the pedestrian woolly bugger, and I ended up having to make an apology. So that's called An Apology to the Woolly Bugger. That's on redsgear.com also. And finally, on redsgear.com, The Psychology of Blisters. Yes, it's true. There is a psychology behind blister formation. There's things that you can do to help mitigate blisters when you're out backpacking and hiking, but there's also a mental component of that I think is equally as important to pay attention to. And finally, on thethinkingwoodsman.com, I wrote a story last spring called The First Rule of Morel Hunting, and kind of like a Fight Club approach to morel hunting that I think you'll get a kick out of, especially if you are a seasoned morel hunter. All right, well, that just about wraps it up for the What's Cooking segment. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, see you guys. We're listening to the Thinking Woodsman podcast. I'm here with Jake Reese. Jake is with Ridgeman. Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Ridgeman does, your services, and how long you've been with the organization?
The Ridgeman, thanks for asking. The Ridgeman, we've been around about 3 years now, and we're in about 9 states, and just faith-based family values company. We promote businesses and products that align with our core values, faithful to our families, loyal to our friends, that kind of thing.
What kind of services and businesses are part of the Ridgeman? I guess, would you call it a network?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Just basically a network of guys in different states who love the outdoors, love the adventure of hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, those kind of things. We have bow store owners, all kinds of products. We have guys that make St. Croix fishing rods, things that people like to use in the outdoors.
Why would a person decide to become, would you call them a member? And if so, why would they decide to join up?
Most people just like to have fun with other people in the outdoors and friends and people they enjoy. So it's a network, and in a positive way. You can take your kids out hunting and fishing, and maybe you want to hunt Iowa and you're from Kansas, and you know that a Ridgeman's going to be someone that you can network with that's maybe shares the same values you share, and it is faith-based. We promote following Christ, so it is based on some family values like that.
What about tools that people can use to get connected? Like if I'm from Missouri, which I am, and I wanted to connect with someone maybe in Colorado to learn about how I'd go about an archery elk hunt, is there an online forum where people can do that?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you go to theridgeman.com, we've got a website. You can actually join there, and then once you join, you get a profile, a picture profile gets uploaded, and so you can see guys from other states. You can see their information. You can call them on your own network. We go to all the expos, or we try to as many shows as we can. If you want to send your products or come and meet and be a part, we have ways for you to do that. Some guys want to film their hunts eventually. We do banquets. I speak at banquets. We also host banquets. We're looking to get in all 50 states. Right now we're in about 9, so we'd like state reps. So yeah, if guys are interested, just go to theridgeman.com and you can learn more about it.
Okay, and I'm assuming no ridge women allowed at this point, right?
At this point, it is just for men and, kids, family values, but it is kind of based more towards men right now. Maybe down the road we'd have the ridge women. But, there's kind of a brotherhood, of guys that now I've got 3 girls and I take them hunting and stuff. So we're not trying to exclude, but it is right now geared towards men.
That's refreshing because in today's politically charged climate of including everyone, despite whether it's appropriate to do that or not, I think you're right. There's something unique about guys fellowshipping together, understanding what each other's going through, and it's okay to have men-only associations because there's just particular things about that are powerful.
Yeah, and what I find is, sometimes when you're hunting with guys, you might feel more comfortable to share about things that you might not be if your wife is there, and there's nothing wrong with your wife hunting and doing those things, but sometimes, sharing the outdoors together, it's kind of a brotherhood that we celebrate together.
Absolutely. Well, do you have, just in closing here, do you have a memorable hunt or a memorable experience in your work so far with Ridgeman?
Yeah, it's been neat to network, and just like I said, guys will call me up from Iowa. I've got a buddy now in Iowa, one in Oklahoma. I got to do a McAllister draw-out hunt, got to go to Alaska. So, yeah, it's kind of opening doors for the guys that are joining, and so I love meeting new guys, and hopefully they enjoy that network too.
Awesome. So if you're a guy and you're interested in infinitely expanding your network of hunting buddies almost overnight, you can do so. How about giving us the website again for folks to do that?
Yeah, it's theridgeman.com. And I'd love to meet you. I'm Jake Reese, the founder. You can reach me through that website, and I'd love to visit with you about if you have a product too, we'd love to help promote that. Or if you just want to get connected into pro staff, maybe you like filming hunts. Eventually we think of maybe having a TV show or a way to use footage from all over the country.
Absolutely. So no need to reinvent the wheel. You've got a network of faithful hunting buddies at your beck and call at theridgeman.com. Jake, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
April, Will It Kill It? We are honored to have someone from academia actually here in the Backyard Bow Range, the Thinking Woodsman Backyard Bow Range. We have one Mr. Dr. Pepper. We actually have a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper cans, and it's been so long since I've bought soda, or pop as I called it growing up. The cans have shrunk. They're tiny now. What happened to the regular size cans? Anyway, I've lined them up on my target, so they're 3 deep. The 6-pack is hanging from a stick that I shoved into my foam block here. So we're going to see what happens when I take a shot at the Dr. Pepper cans. Does the broadhead deflect? Does it get full penetration or partial penetration? We're going to see if we can't line up all these 3 cans. Stay tuned. It destroyed all 3 in a row. Oh, and it got my microphone. I had to come back into the studio to finish recording this segment because the screen on my mic was just saturated with Dr. Pepper. A clearly 20-yard shot with it was actually a G5, the small game broadhead. The thing is like an eagle talon. Just destroyed those 3 aluminum cans right in a row, sent Dr. Pepper everywhere. So will it kill it? Yes, absolutely. And will it make a mess? You bet. Well, it was great visiting again with you this month. Really appreciate you listening. I also wanted to invite your feedback. The show is at a bit of a crossroads right now, and I'm trying to determine if you'd prefer one show a month that's a little longer in duration, or if you'd rather have shorter shows but more frequently during the month, like 2, 3, or maybe even 4 times. Let me know on my Facebook page, The Thinking Woodsman, or on my Twitter page, @Woodsman's Words. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Thinking Woodsman podcast via your iTunes or Android podcasting app. You can find all the links to all the articles referenced in this episode in the show notes over at thethinkingwoodsman.com under the tab called The Woodsman Thinketh. All right, well, it looks like we've run out of daylight and need to climb down out of the stand and head back to the truck. All the best to everyone out chasing gobblers and mushrooms and crappies and walleye this spring. It really is an awesome time of year to be an outdoorsman. For the Thinking Woodsman podcast from the redsgear.com studio, this is your buddy Tim Chelsvik reminding you, I'm thinking it's time you got outdoors.
You're listening to the Thinking Woodsman podcast.